Virginia, we won this thing!
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin. We are just so excited here in Virginia. All I can tell you is Virginia is a free state. There are so many people here that are just so excited about this huge win where Republicans have been able to pull off a victory in this blue state that Joe Biden won by 10 points in 2020. So it is quite a day for us here in Virginia. And all I can tell you is I have a lot of my friends who live in the swamp and in Maryland, and they're calling me saying, hey, I better move my zip code and come over to join you here in Virginia. But I have to say, you know, I want to dig deeper into this win. What does this mean for 2022? And I have a great guest with us tonight. I've got Congressman Ken Buck, a friend of CPAC, someone who we greatly admire from the great state of Colorado. Congressman Buck, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let me just get started real quick with this tweet that you put out. It basically said Democrats were just embarrassed in Virginia and barely won in New Jersey, a state Joe Biden carried by 16 points. Instead of learning their lesson, Democrats are still pushing socialist spending policies this week and saying CRT isn't real. Red wave is coming. Give us your reaction. And, you know, really in a state like Colorado, where we've seen a shift going from Republican to Democrat, do you think this phenomenon can happen in states like Colorado?
I think it can happen across the country. And I think what's really essential to understand is that, 8 to 10 weeks ago, the Republican candidate in Virginia was down significantly. He changed his strategy. He ran and showed a clear contrast with his conservative principles and with the liberal socialist principles of his opponent. And I think if Republicans across the country adopt that strategy, if we make sure that we talk about why our conservative free market principles are right, we'll win. And we'll win big, because what Biden is doing is he is taking this country down a very dangerous path, and Americans in their gut understand that.
I got to tell you, I mean, here in Virginia, being a blue state, obviously you're in Congress, so you get to kind of deal with us here in this state of Virginia. I feel like it's the year of the mom. That's how I like to put it. I've never seen so many parents come out, especially moms, and really be so brave in such a difficult time to stand up against CRT, to stand up against this gender confusion agenda by the left. What is your sense in terms of what you're seeing and the fact that parents this time around really made the difference when it came to this win in Virginia, and obviously such a close race in a blue state like New Jersey?
You know, what's so beautiful about this is it's really a grassroots effort. It is a bottom-up effort in America. We saw the results in Virginia. We're going to see it in many other states in a year. But what I'm so proud of is people just didn't passively sit by and allow their children to be indoctrinated by the left. They really got involved. And I think one of the side effects of COVID is that we're going to see a lot more homeschoolers. We're going to see a lot more parents get involved in the education of their children, attend parent-teacher conferences, understand what the weekly plan is to teach their students, understand what their students are saying. Hopefully we have more kitchen table discussions between parents and students so that parents fully grasp exactly what the left is trying to do in our schools.
So I got to ask you, because I think another issue that played in addition to education is the fact of all the mandates, between mask mandates that our children at schools have to put on a mask, as opposed to when Joe Biden's at a rally and schmoozing with people, he doesn't need to wear a mask. There's such a hypocrisy there. Also the vaccine mandates, which I think have really, really caused an issue with so many individuals, including our police officers, our firefighters, even our teachers, saying, I don't want the government telling me what to do. It's my health choice whether to get vaccinated or not. Do you think that plays a role in what we saw in Virginia and moving into 2022?
I absolutely do. I don't think anything motivates people more than hypocrisy. And when the left continues to talk about the science, It's absolutely ludicrous to decide alone you need to have a mask on, or if an airline should have a vaccine mandate and include someone who is outdoors filling an airliner with fuel. That person isn't coming into contact with the public. There's no reason to force that person to have a vaccine mandate. These first responders, they're saving lives every day. Police officers, firefighters, and they understand their health. A lot of them are 23, 24, 25 years old. They're at very low risk for COVID. And I shouldn't say for COVID, but for the serious side effects of COVID. And they've made a decision, and we should empower people in this country to make decisions. We shouldn't have government mandates, and certainly not government mandates that are based on bad science.
So put your political hat on. And do you think that as we're getting into 2022, what do you think the Republicans are going to do in order to ensure that we are in a strong position to take over the majority in the House and send Speaker Nancy Pelosi back to California, where she can go get her hair done, every week if she needs to?
Well, I think what Republicans need to do, and what I plan on doing in my campaign for re-election, is to make sure that I talk about the policies that made this country great, the Trump policies, low taxes, less regulation, the strong border security policies that the Trump administration enacted, and how the weak Biden administration, with the consent of members of Congress, United States senators, has undone those policies and created a border crisis. The withdrawal from Afghanistan, absolute embarrassment, because the Biden administration didn't understand how to put measures in place and that the Taliban would have accepted, frankly. We were relying on the Taliban for security in Kabul. Absolute craziness. And I think if we just show people, look, low taxes mean a better economy for everybody, not rich, old, white people, for everybody. We need to make sure that we understand that less regulation allows people to start their own business, empowers people. Those are the messages that I think will come from Republicans.
Yeah, I do think for, those of us who have been involved in this arena for a long time, it's been an interesting lesson on how local issues really do shape a statewide race. And I have to tell you, just watching how Youngkin and his team, they were able to build a coalition where it was the MAGA Trump people, the people from rural Virginia, and then add to that such a strong support from the suburban area was just fascinating. And one of the things that, listening to these different groups, they kept saying the same thing. They're like, we need someone who can win. And they really felt that Glenn Youngkin, he has no political experience. He's a successful businessman, very likable, that he was able to really energize and create a movement. I think that's a force of nature that can be replicated. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the people of Virginia understand that rising crime threatens everyone. And I think suburban bombs, as well as others in suburban northern Virginia, are very concerned about crime. They're very concerned about the divisiveness they see in this country. They're concerned about, everybody kept blaming President Trump for the response to the COVID pandemic. Now they see it's not President Trump's fault. This is something that happened because China allowed a virus to infect the planet, and no one other than President Trump was talking about where the virus came from and why it was so important for us to deal with what China had done to the world. So I think that people saw the lies that occurred in the 2020 campaign and have seen the results of bad policies. I think, frankly, they have buyer's remorse right now. They wish President Trump was back in office. They wish we had a strong leader that would lead this country forward.
Yeah, I've never seen a presidency like Joe Biden's presidency just burned down in flames. Like, it has been disastrous. But Congressman Buck, stay with us. I want to get your opinion on what's happening on the Hill when it comes to these ginormous spending bills. We'll be right back. Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. I'm back with Congressman Ken Buck, a good friend of our CPAC world. Congressman Buck, thank you for sticking with us. I want to just jump right into what's happening in Congress. We've got these big spending bill, the infrastructure bill. I mean, is Nancy going to be able to get this done?
Great question. I don't think that the Democrats will get the type of bill done that they were talking about months ago. I don't know if they're going to get a reduced version of that. I hope not. The problem we have now in America, we have spending for decades that have resulted in a $30 trillion national debt. We have inflation that is kicking in. You want to talk about a tax on hardworking people. The inflation is that tax, and the Democrats are hurting the very people they say they're trying to help the most. These spending bills are bad on a lot of different levels. They are gifts to the big blue cities. They are not helping everyday Americans across America. And this kind of partisanship, I think America's fed up with. They've spoken loud and clear in Virginia. They've spoken loudly in New Jersey. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of these Democrats start backing off of their commitment to support some of these bills.
So let me ask you, Congressman, I know Republicans have stayed very united on this issue, especially when it comes to the spending bill, not so much on the infrastructure bill. But what's your sense in what you're seeing in Congress? Just give us some insider view into this fight between the progressives and the moderates, because let's be real, they're the ones in charge right now, especially of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, so what we're seeing clearly is the moderate Democrats, if there is such a thing, the less socialist of the Socialist Party, trying to make sure that they get something they can take back to their voters next fall and say, I got this bridge, I got this highway, I got this project that I can bring back to you. And the progressives are saying, we want more. We want to fix, Medicare in a way that makes it bankrupt in the near future. We want all these other these handouts, this Green New Deal that is now masquerading as a different type of bill. They can put whatever label they want on it. It's the same Green New Deal that they ran on years ago and lost. The progressives want that, and they're going to demand that, and they're going to hold up all of this until they make sure that the Senate goes along with them.
Yeah, it's just shocking to watch how they're doing this. But I do feel like this is for the Democrats and for Joe Biden, they view this as a win. If they're able to pass the spending bill, able to pass this infrastructure bill, it's clearly what they're going to campaign on next year. Is that going to be enough? Or do the American people realize, look, this whole climate change thing, I know it's a Democrat's religion, but it's not the top of my priority list. I mean, what's your sense of the American people's reception to these spending bills?
I can tell you in Colorado, when I'm in Colorado and I talk to people, they think that folks in D.C. have lost their minds. They cannot understand how anybody can try to pass a $3.5 trillion bill. That number is just mind-boggling. And when you talk about some of the details, the billions and billions of dollars of clean gases, electric school buses that are going to be handed out to just certain school districts. When you talk about the pork that is in this bill for Democrats that are in the House, people see through it and they're scared. They're really scared about what is going on with the leadership in Washington, D.C. They're scared primarily because people understand when you push a lot of money into our economy, you're going to get more inflation. And inflation is hurting people. It's hurting people at the gas pump. It's hurting people in the grocery store. It's hurting people across the economy right now. They also see shortages. They see shortages in computer chips. They see ships offshore that can't be unloaded because of the really poor management that we have right now in Washington, D.C.
Can I get your quick reaction before we wrap on, obviously, Dr. Fauci? I've been reading a lot of these articles on CDC creating this muddled messaging. I find it that it has created a lot of tension between what Dr. Fauci is saying, how he makes these demands on the American people, while at the same time pushing to limit our freedoms. What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far and how Dr. Fauci has managed this crisis?
Well, I think he's managed it poorly, and there are certainly allegations that would suggest criminal conduct. There are certainly allegations that would suggest that he needs to be removed from office. And I think the first thing that Republicans should do in the House when we retake the House, and we will retake the House, when we retake the House, we need to make sure that there is an investigation. There is a special committee that is called to just investigate the pandemic, the origins of the pandemic, the response to the pandemic, as well as whether Dr. Fauci and his agencies were involved in some way with the Wuhan laboratory in creating this virus.
Well, Congressman Ken Buck, you are just a champion for all the great conservative values that we stand for. I want to thank you so much for being such a fighter for the America First policies. There's so much work to do. We need you to keep fighting in Congress, and you've got our support. And we, again, appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us on CPAC Now.
Thank you. God bless you and your husband, and thank you for CPAC. It's one of those organizations that we rely on, and we're so proud to join.
Well, let me tell you, our grassroots, they are pumped and energized. Stay with us. I'll give you my final thoughts. And now for my final thoughts. Let me tell you, this is the year of the mom. And I just want to thank all those moms out there who stood up for freedom, who stood up for their children. And we can never, ever forget about those dads as well, who they made their voices heard in front of these leftist school boards. And it really made a difference. It is about the power of the people. I feel this renowned hope again here in America. And it started here in Virginia, the ground zero area of Loudoun County. And to watch you all, you parents, raise up, speak up, and be bold, and stand up to protect your families, I can't thank you enough. You all made the difference here in Virginia to make sure that Glenn Youngkin and the Republican slate won. And I got to tell you, this is just the beginning. Our fight has just begun. And it really is going to take all of us to come together and continue to speak up and stop these radical leftists and these socialists from trying to control our lives and control our children. So God bless you all. And know that we have great hope in saving America. Good night, and God bless.